Welcome back, Algebra 1. This is your 1-4-H notes. We're going to do the raising a power to a power again. So we're just going to take what we did in the previous notes one step further. So let's review what we did in those last 1-4G notes before we get into that. So here we have m to the fourth raised to the second, and this is the concept that we talked about before. So basically when we see this, what we do is we take these two exponents and we multiply them. So we'd have 4 times 2, which will give us m to the eighth, and 3 times -1, which will give us -3. So there we go, m to the eighth and m to the -3rd. Now, whenever we have this negative power, we don't want to move that right away. That needs to be our last step, because if you look at this right here, we have an 8 and a -3, and what's going to happen when we add those together? 8 plus a -3, well, that's going to end up giving us a positive 5. So we end up with a positive exponent that doesn't need to be moved. So we don't want to move those negative exponents until our very last step, because sometimes we end up getting rid of them by combining them with other exponents. Alright, so what we're doing here is we're putting multiple things in the parentheses. And I did talk about this in that, if you remember in the 1-4G notes, I added that extra problem at the end. That's basically what we're talking about today, is we're just putting multiple things inside the parentheses, and just remember, everything inside there gets raised to that power on the outside. So what I want you to do, and this is the easiest way to avoid mistakes on these, is if you have multiple things inside here, anything that does not have a visible exponent, like the 3 doesn't have a visible exponent and neither does the x, the easiest thing to do to avoid the mistakes is you go ahead and put a 1 for anything that does not have a visible exponent. And what that's going to do is that's going to remind you that this 4 has to get multiplied by the 1, and the 4 needs to get multiplied by this 1. Okay? Not the 3 and not the x, but the exponents. This exponent of 1 and this exponent of 1. So then what I'm left with is 3, and then the exponent 1 times 4, and then x, again, multiply the exponent 1 times 4. All right, now those you could probably do in your head, so we're just left with 3 to the fourth and then x to the fourth. And then we want to take, anytime we have these numbers, 3 to the fourth, we want to do that. And let me just jot down on the side here in case you weren't in class or if you forgot. You want to do a 3, and then if you're looking, depending on the calculator you have, there's this button that kind of looks like an upside down V, which I told you that's called the caret key. And that will be 3 raised to the fourth power. You want to do it like that. And it should give you 81. Oops, not 84, sorry. And then basically, I mean, if you can't find that key, or you don't know how your calculator works with exponents, this means we're taking 3 times 3 4 times. So you could do that in your calculator. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And that's what exponents are telling you, is how many times do we multiply 3 by itself. And that's what we get. X to the fourth, since we don't know a number for x, we just leave that as x to the fourth. Okay, so there's your final answer for example A. Example B, I have this one done for you. Again, I'm putting the exponents in where there are no visible exponents, so 2 to the first, b to the first. So 4 times 1 gives me 2 to the fourth. 4 times 1, again, gives me b to the fourth. So I'm just going to jump right into that instead of writing 4 times 1. And then again, 2 to the fourth power, plug that in your calculator. 2 to the fourth power is 16, so I have one thing left to do. 2 to the fourth is 16, b to the fourth. Next, I only have one thing that needs filled in here, is the 4 to the first power, so I'm going to plug in a 1 here for my exponent for 4. And then again, I'm taking this, now it's a -2, and I'm going to multiply -2 times 1 and -2 times 5. Alright, so this one, I just did that first step for you. So -2 times 1 is 4 to the -2, and then -2 times 5 is g to the -10. Now, these are both negative powers, so we're going to go back to that negative power rule. Okay, this is not 4 times -2 to give me -8. This is a negative power, which we can't have. So this guy here needs to get moved down, but then also this g to the -10, this is a problem also that needs to be moved down. So my denominator is going to be 4, now it's a +2, and then g, now it's a +10. And if you remember, like I had said before, when everything gets moved out of the numerator, we can't just leave it blank. we need a filler, and that filler is a 1. So make sure you, if you move everything out of the top, make sure you put a 1 there. We don't just leave it blank. So last thing we need to do is 4 squared. So you can go ahead and plug that in your calculator. 4 squared gives us 16. G raised to the power of 10. So there's your final answer. 1 over 16 g to the 10. So we're also bringing back in these old exponent rules, you know, the power of 0. I don't think there's any power of zeros in this one, but the negative exponents, the adding, you know, when you're multiplying bases, adding the exponents like you saw in the bell ringer, you know, different things like that, they're all in here as well. All right, next one. We're going to do this one together. So again, first thing I want to do, don't just jump right into multiplying them. The first thing we want to do is, the 3 doesn't have a power that's visible. It's a 1, so we're going to put a 1 there. Same thing with the x. Does not have a visible power, so I'm putting a 1 there. Now I'm going to start multiplying. 2 times negative 2. So x to the negative 4. Times. Let me switch up the color here to make it a little more separated. So 4 times negative 1 gives me 3 to the 4th. 4 times 1 gives me x to the 4th. And then 4 times 2 gives me y to the 8th. All right, remember we always want the numbers out front. So in your calculator, 3 to the 4th, we've already done that one earlier. 3 to the 4th gives us 81. X, add your exponents for x. We have a negative 4 plus 4. So here we do end up getting a 0. I didn't think we had one on this one, but we do. So x to the 0, and then y to the 8th. So you can show that step. It's not necessary for you to have this x to the 0, because hopefully by now we all know that anything to the 0 power is 1. So x to the 0 is 1, and 1 times 81 is 1, so we don't really need that. So 81 y to the 8th, there is your final answer for this example. There we go. Next, this one, I got it done for you here. I'll just talk you through it. Again, we're just multiplying all these exponents through. So I started off by putting my exponents. So there's a 1 there. There's a 1 there with the 3 and a 1 with the a. And then I multiplied. 5 times 1 is 2 to the 5th. 5 times 3 is a to the 15th. Over here, 3 times 1 gives me 3 to the 3rd. 3 times 1 gives me a to the 3rd. 3 times 2 gives me b to the 6th. I try to make my b's and 6's look a little different. Sorry if they look too much alike to you, but I tried to make them a little different. So then again, I made my numbers out front. Bring the numbers out front. 2 to the 5th gives me 32. 3 to the 3rd gives me 27. Add the powers, so I have a to the 15th, a to the 3rd, so those are being multiplied and we add those exponents. 15 plus 3 gives me a to the 18th. And then b to the 6th, since that was the only b term, we just bring that down. Multiply your numbers. 32 times 27 gives me 864, so there's your final answer for that one. All right, last one for example F. What I want you to do, pause the video, go ahead, work ahead on this one, try it out, and see what you get for your answer, because I know there's a lot of little places here that you can make little mistakes, and I want you to give this one a try and see how you do with it, and then come back and see how you did with your work and just check your answer. All right, so hopefully you paused it and you did try this one out and see how you did. So here's the work. All right. So I'm going to walk through it again. First, I put the 1's in there. I put the 1 in for the 5, the 1 in for the 6, the m and the n over here that did not have visible exponents. That means there were 1's. And again, it seems like such a little thing to do, and it is a little thing to do, but it will help you to avoid those little mistakes. So multiply the 3 through. So 3, 6 to the 3rd, 3 times 1 gives you 3. M, 3 times 1 gives you 3. N, 3 times 1 gives you 3. Over here I got a 1. 2 times 1 gives me 5 to the 2nd. And then M, negative 3 times 2 gives me negative 6. 6 to the third power is 216. Bringing my numbers out front, 5 squared is 25. And then m, adding my exponents for m, because I have two m terms here. So adding them, 3 plus a negative 6. That's for my negative 3. And then again, I have an n with nothing to combine it with. And then I have an m to the negative third. That's a problem, needs to be moved down. So here's my final answer. Check your answer there. Hopefully you have that correct. And if not, maybe looking at my work here, you can see where you made your mistake. And if you still have any questions or you're not sure what's wrong with your work, look back through the problem, rewind it. With any of the problems, if I went too fast, rewind the video or ask in class. Send me an email, private comment, whatever. If you have any questions on these, just let me know, and I can go over them further.